So I want to start this conversation carefully because this is one of those topics where people tend to feel misunderstood very quickly. So let me say this up front. There is nothing wrong with enjoying what you enjoy sexually. There is nothing wrong with identifying as a top or a bottom or a verse or a side or not caring about labels at all. And there is nothing wrong with wanting to clarify some of these things in the bedroom. But that's not what this video is about. This is about something not talked about as much, I guess you could say, maybe something a little bit quieter. It's about the meaning we sometimes attach to sexual roles without realizing it, and how that meaning can gently or unintentionally shape our dating experiences. Not in a bad way, not in the you're doing it wrong way, just in a human way that is, I think, worth understanding a little bit more. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the video so far. Please make sure you click the link in my bio. I'm starting a men's community for like-minded men who are tired of the dating scene. So if you're just wanting to connect with other guys who are on the same page as you, this is a great opportunity for you to do that, whether it's romantic, whether it's friendships, whatever the case may be. And I also have a link for a 20-minute free discovery call. So if you want a one-on-one conversation with me so we can figure out what's going on in your life, in your dating life, whatever it is, we can sit down, we can talk about it and come up with a tailored plan for you. I hope you enjoyed the rest of the video, and I'll see you guys later. And this question keeps coming up because many men feel a kind of disconnect that they can't really name. And oftentimes it sounds like when I talk to clients and what I hear clients say to me when I'm having conversations with them, what I read in the comments, questions that I get in my DMs and stuff, usually what they'll say are things like, I feel like I'm expected to show up a certain way, or I feel like I'm boxed into a role outside the bedroom, right? Or I don't know when this stopped being about sex and started being about who I'm supposed to be. And usually, no one is doing anything intentionally, right? There is no villain in this story. It's just that roles, especially unspoken ones, have a way of spilling over into our day to day. And when we don't talk about that, people either internalize the discomfort or they assume it's just how things are. And this conversation exists to try and slow that down a little bit. Human beings, we like clarity, especially when it comes to things like intimacy. So roles offer a bit of structure. They offer predictability. They reduce uncertainty. And for many gay men, uncertainty hasn't always felt safe. So clarity can feel very comforting in a lot of ways. And what's important here is that sexual roles often start as preferences, things that you enjoy, ways that you connect, dynamics that feel good in your body. But over time, without intention, preferences can start to turn into expectations in a lot of ways. Not because anybody decided they should, but because as human beings, we are meaning-making creatures. We have to attach a meaning to everything. We have to label everything. We have to categorize everything. And again, that's kind of a survival mechanism, right? Because if you can predict things, if you can create certainty and clarity around things, that reduces the danger. So we notice patterns. We fill in the gaps. We start to assume certain things. So we assume things like who initiates, who plans, who leads emotionally, who has to adapt in that dynamic. And that can slowly get tied to roles, even if no one ever said that out loud. And if you have ever felt the pressure to show up a certain way because of how you're perceived sexually, that doesn't mean something is wrong with you. There's not. It means that you're noticing something that maybe other people aren't noticing. And again, it's not that other people aren't noticing, but maybe it's conversations are not being had. And it's a feeling that you're feeling that you're having difficulty placing because you don't really know who to have the conversation with. So here's where I want to be very, very clear. This isn't about saying sexual roles are gender roles. They are not the same thing. And I think that they can get confused sometimes, but they can sometimes borrow meaning from the world that we grew up in, a world that still carries a lot of unspoken ideas about masculinity, about power, about emotional labor. And most of us didn't choose those ideas consciously. We absorbed them from our environment, from society. So when conversations come up about monogamy being heteronormative, but sexual roles are not questioned in the same way, it can be confusing for a lot of people, not because one is right and the other is wrong, but because we are more often comfortable questioning structures that feel optional and less comfortable questioning ones that feel a little bit more personal or a little bit more embodied. And that doesn't make anyone inconsistent. It just means that some conversations feel safer than others. So, what does this look like in a real life dating situation? It looks less like debating theory and more like checking in with yourself. So, asking specific questions, asking questions like, what does this role mean to me emotionally? Do I feel free inside of this role or do I feel obligated in it? Does this show up outside the bedroom in ways that I've never talked about? And if you're dating someone, it can sound a lot like, how do you experience this role, right? What does it mean for you? Where do you notice it showing up emotionally in the relationship? These aren't super heavy conversations. They're grounding ones. They're important ones. They're ones that I think we should be having. And they don't, or at least they shouldn't, kill the attraction. They prevent these misunderstandings from turning into resentment later. Sexual rules aren't the problem. They're not. And neither is questioning them, right? What matters is staying curious instead of silent. With yourself, at least, right? That's the first place that you can start. And then you can start with the people that you're dating. You are allowed to enjoy what you enjoy. You are allowed to identify however you identify. And you're also allowed to understand how meaning, how expectations, and how intimacy intersects with you. That's not criticism. That's self-awareness. That's the ability to sit down with yourself and ask yourself questions without shaming yourself for asking those questions. I think sexual roles, specifically in same-sex relationships, can cause some confusion if there is this pressure or a feeling of having to fulfill a particular role because of what is expected, because of what society says is expected, because what gay culture has taught is expected, right? So a lot of these things, like the more masculine person in the relationship is the more dominant one and the one who's the top, whereas the more quiet partner or the more feminine partner is the bottom. And again, this is where we can kind of confuse gender roles with sexual roles in the bedroom. And if we're going to have a conversation about, let's say, for example, monogamy being heteronormative, then we should probably have a conversation about how we assume certain roles in the bedroom are also heteronormative because they are based on our experiences and living up in a heteronormative world, right? And again, that's not blaming anybody. That's just kind of, it is what it is. So if this is something that you're struggling with and you're trying to figure out how this works for you, or how you can apply this when you're dating somebody, if a particular role doesn't feel right for you, or you want to explore multiple different roles within the bedroom and you feel like you're confined or stuck into one specific label or category, it begins with self-awareness, like I said, and then from there it goes into having confidence to have these conversations, to communicating what your needs are when you are dating somebody, and maintaining those boundaries for yourself, because that's going to be very important for you to maintain your sense of identity. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one.